Hello, my name is Jamie David, and this tooltip is Overlocker Anatomy. I am featuring the latest addition to the BERNINA lineup, the L450 Overlocker. However, the parts and features are universal to most Serger machines. The first thing you will want to know is how to get power to the machine. The power switch and control socket are located on the right-hand side of the machine. The L450 has a combination foot control and power cord. This machine also features an AC motor. Just like a sewing machine, a serger has a hand wheel. It is located on the right-hand side of the machine. Turn it counterclockwise towards yourself. Now let's work our way through threading in order to learn the parts of the machine. The thread stand is at the back of the machine. It has 4 spool pins for threading. These are pretty much the same as the vertical spool pins on your sewing machine. There are just more on a serger because it uses more spools of thread. Unlike your sewing machine, there is no bobbin on a serger. Instead of a bobbin, it uses loopers. We will discuss the loopers a little bit later. In the center of the thread stand, you will find the retractable thread guide. Make sure to raise this all the way up before sewing. The plastic cone-shaped object that sits on the thread stand is a spool stabilizer, and it is used for large cones of thread commonly used with sergers. Sometimes there is a lot of space in the spool of thread, and the vibration from the machine will cause the spool to wiggle around. This can affect the tension of your stitch. If you notice this, turn the spool stabilization cone upside down to further stabilize the thread. Similarly, if you want to use a small spool of thread, you can remove the spool stabilizer and add the spool cap. Just like sewing machines, smooth, even thread delivery is key to great-looking stitches. The thread pretension guides at the top of the machine are the first guides for threading. The thread easily snaps into the guides from the right to the left. Think flossing. The tension adjustment dials are located on the front of the machine. These can make a serger seem scary or complicated, but you should not feel afraid. After a little experimenting and practice, changing the stitches, you will feel confident and in control of these. This is your control panel, and you are the driver. The thread tension adjustment dials are located on the front of the machine. These can make a serger seem scary or complicated, but you should not be afraid. After a little experimenting and practice changing stitches, you will feel confident and in control of these in no time. This is your control panel. You are the driver. Open the looper cover and you will discover the thread path for your serger. To open the looper cover, pull it to the right and flip it downward. The threading chart inside the machine is easy to read and color-coded to match all the thread guide for your machine. You will also notice that on the L450, the looper cover doubles as an accessory storage. This is awesome because if you develop the practice of putting the accessories back, you will have the tools that you need at hand. The storage holds the needle-changing hex screwdriver, a lint brush, tweezers, the 2-thread converter, the needle holder threader, and a spare pack of needles. Like I said, keep these things here and you won't be in a bind when you need to change a needle. Also located behind the looper door are the needle pad and the hand wheel position indicator. The needle pad is a new feature for our BERNINA sergers, and I love it. Use it for storage of unused needles when going from a 4 to a 3 or 2 thread stitch setup. Above the needle pad is the hand wheel position indicator. When the red bar is aligned with the black triangle, the needles and loopers are at the highest threading position. Now let's check out the loopers. The loopers are the part of the machine that cover the fabric edge with thread. They use 6 to 10 times the amount of thread that the needles do to make the serge stitch. The upper looper is indicated with the blue markings, and it goes over the top of the fabric and stitch plate when forming the stitch. It is the most visible thread on the top of the fabric seam. Thread the looper eye from the front to the back. The lower looper is indicated with red markings, and it moves under the fabric and stitch plate when forming the stitch. It is the most visible thread on the bottom of the fabric. Easily thread the lower looper by pushing down on the lower looper threader lever to access the thread guides as shown in the diagram. Turn the hand wheel to put the lever back into position for sewing. The cutting knife of the new serger features an upper knife driven from below. This offers great visibility for threading. The machine even comes with a spare upper knife, but if you are careful with your sewing, this knife will last you a long time. Needle threading is very similar to a sewing machine. Follow the thread guides indicated by the yellow or green markings. Yellow is for the left needle and green is for the right needle. There are two sets of thread guides at the needle holder area. When taking the needle in and out of the machine, use the needle check window to make sure that your needles are all the way up. Notice when using both needles, the left needle is slightly higher than the right. The presser foot sits just below the needles on top of the feed dogs. Like a sewing machine, there are optional presser feet to perform specific techniques. At the back of the machine, you will find the presser foot lift. This is how you raise and lower the presser foot. This machine features an extra 2 millimeter lift. When the lift is in the raised position, you can pull up on the lever and you will notice that the foot will raise slightly higher. To remove the presser foot, press the release lever at the back of the presser foot shank. To put the foot back on, align the groove in the shaft with the presser foot pin and simply lower the presser foot. It will snap into place. The sewing table is to the left of the machine. This provides a working surface for sewing, and it will swing open to access the knife on-off knob. To deactivate the cutting knife, open the sewing table and the looper cover. Press the knife knob inward and turn clockwise until the knife is at the lowest position. To engage the knife, do the opposite, turning the knob counterclockwise until the knife is in the highest position. It is important that when you are working with the knife off, that you make sure the fabric is not wider than the selected cutting width. Otherwise, you could damage the upper looper. There is a built-in thread cutter located on the left side of the machine. To use the cutter, serge off the fabric, creating a long thread tail, and pull it around through the cutter. The cutting width dial is located on the front of the machine. The set cutting width is shown on the cutting width indicator, located by the presser foot. The scale indicates the distance of the knife to the left needle. For right needle applications, the distance is 2 millimeters less than labeled. Use wide seams on loosely woven fabrics and smaller seams on dense fabrics. MTC, or micro thread control, is a BERNINA patented feature. It gives the user fine-tuned control over the stitch by adjusting the position of the stitch finger. If the thread is firm and the fabric is curling or cupping in the stitches, move the MTC towards the plus direction. This allows more room for the loops to form. On the contrary, if the edge is loose and loops are forming off the edge, move the MTC to the minus direction and the loops will align with the fabric edge. This is a great feature, especially for flat lock stitching. The rolled hem selection lever sits just in front of the MTC. Pulling this lever back will remove the stitch finger from the stitch equation and will cause the fabric to roll slightly while the loopers are covering the edge with thread. This serger has two sets of feed dogs that move the fabric through the machine. In this view, I have removed the presser foot so that you can see the feed dogs and have a better view of the stitch plate. Also notice the stitch finger and how the thread forms loops over the stitch finger. A removable seam guide comes standard with this machine. Simply snap it onto the stitch plate over the rolled hem lever and then close the sewing table and you are ready to sew an accurate seam. The presser foot pressure can be adjusted to 5 settings. The presser foot pressure dial is located on the top of the machine. For most sewing projects, the pressure can be left at the standard setting of M. H is high, L is light. If sewing something extra thick, like fleece, change the presser foot to extra light, or XL. For something thin, like chiffon, try XH, extra high. From this view, you can also see the cutoffs bin. This bin attaches to the looper door and makes cleanup a breeze. It is also a great place to store the foot control when you are carrying the machine. The stitch length knob and differential feed knobs are located on the outside of the machine on the right-hand side, just above the hand wheel. The stitch length is the top knob. Notice the default standard settings for an overlock stitch are indicated by a dot or a bullet point. This is true throughout the machine. Standard stitch length is 2.5 millimeters. The higher the number, the longer the stitch. For a rolled hem, you would want a shorter number. The knob also indicates this with a range indicated by the letter R. The differential feed knob controls how the two sets of feed dogs move. Because the two sets of feed dogs move independently, adjustments can be made to prevent or create a puckering or waving effect. The back feed dogs move at a constant rate, So what you are adjusting is the front feed dogs. If you set the differential feed to 2, it will grab about 2 times the amount of fabric as the back, creating a gathering effect or preventing a stretching effect. If you set it to 0.7, it will grab a smaller amount than the back feed dog, allowing the fabric to stretch as it moves through. Stay tuned for more tool tips and explore the features and functions of the BERNINA Overlocker in more detail. Until then, thanks for tuning in and learning the anatomy of a serger.